What do I need to record the
Let
video
everyone
for?
see
Oh,
my.
we're
Hi.
live.
Whoa.
We're still streaming video, Brian. I'm just not recording the video locally.
Oh, hi.
Don't worry.
Have we been
Yeah.
streaming this whole time?
No, I just pressed it. Just
Oh,
as you
okay.
were asking. And when I pressed to go live, then it asked me, do you want to record locally the audio or the audio
Okay.
and the video?
Right
And I
off the
said
top,
audio.
I have a message for R. Pete.
Who's that? Oh, R. Pete.
R.
Oh,
Pete
yes.
number one.
Yeah, I get these emails all the time. I get excited that someone made a comment on our video, but it's always the same comment.
Yeah.
Is that your message?
So this is a message for R. Pete. R. Pete, I love and appreciate you. I am so thankful that you are always number one. But we do get an email saying new YouTube comment on your post. And I always know because it's within 24 hours of us publishing. And I
Well,
know
here's
who
my
it's going to
other
be
question.
from. And I know what it's going to say. And so I'm just wondering, R. Pete, maybe you do it at the start of listening. But I think if you listened, formulated, I want to know what you think of
Yeah, exactly.
like a conversation contribute. And you know what, if that's not your thing, just keep doing what you're doing. This is just a note.
A request.
You can choose to take it or not.
Yeah, it would be cool to actually have confirmation that you watched the whole video and didn't just come in right number one and then leave.
Oh yeah.
Say-
Well, see, that's not it. I just want I want something to chew on. I want
I see. You want a message.
I have the unread email, so I have to scratch the itch. I open it up. Oh yeah, and for a while, and it still is. It's enough. You are enough, R. Pete.
I could turn off the emails if you want. That's one solution.
Yeah, but then we'll never know when a second person comments. R. Pete could probably comment.
That's never happened.
R.
That's never
Pete one
happened.
of one. It doesn't even need to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
R.
Okay,
Pete
we're gonna
101.
give a code. I like that. Shams, can you remind us around an hour from now to give a code word for RP?
I don't think we need to test our. I don't think that's. I don't think that's
also,
the tack
yeah.
I want to take. You can drop a code word. The R. Pete code word of the episode is.
Well, we'll find out in an hour. All right. Well, let's start the show. I think we got a banger today. It's gonna be fun.
Can fantasy hockey podcast episodes be bangers?
Yeah,
This one can.
this will be. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yay! Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys going to the Cupful Finals, baby! The consolation finals, but still, I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me to take a look at who's been doing what over these past couple of weeks to help us try to predict what we need to do in our big-time finals matchups, and also just to talk some hockey, it's my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, the poop ball prognostication, your friend and mine, like I said, Brian Comb. Brian, how's it going?
Good. How are you? I'm pumped. Consolation finals, and really, we're one of four finalists in our division. Only a quarter, only four people get to be a finalist of any kind, Elon, and you and I are one of those four in our respective divisions. You and I also both ran the table in our divisions this week, outscoring everyone.
Honestly, I kind of feel like I won my division. So there you go.
I mean, you can win your division from the consolation bracket if you are imaginative and creative enough. So congrats on doing that this week, and I look forward to you doing it again next week with just one more final slap in the face to your whole division.
Yeah, I guess I will give a shout out to Devin and Jared for actually making the finals in Tier 3 for Lunda.
Oh, so classy. So classy.
But probably we should shout out before we actually start the show. We've got a lot to get to. And I know what people want to hear the most is what's going on in Cupful. But Tier 1, my pal Jordan got knocked off. Oh, so sad. He goes. He's the new Lewis. Jordan is every year
the best
in Tier 1.
Yeah. He's one of the best to never win. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Compared to the guy he lost to, Ryan, who just wins all the time, never loses.
Oh my gosh, Ryan is like parading to a repeat. And so Ryan and the Tier 1 final scores, by the way, were all incredible. And they were all actually, there was basically a 12-point range from the lowest score in the Tier 1 semifinals to the highest score in the Tier 1 semifinals. So yeah, we're going to have, who's it going to be in the finals? We've got Ryan going for the repeat.
Oh, you're asking me?
And Bell City Beauties I keep forgetting, is it Joe? Who is it? He's got to put his name in the name.
One sec.
Sorry, I
give
know,
me a
this is an
moment.
edit point.
Right at the start.
Sorry.
Bell City Beauties.
I blame Bell. I'm gonna change their name on. It's Nolan. It's Nolan.
So why'd you make me check?
You know what I'm gonna do right now? I'm changing Nolan's nickname on our server.
Where?
On Discord.
Okay.
Oh, I can't.
Can you just go? Let's do that later. Let's just go from wherever.
I'm doing it now. Bell City Beauties.
It's like one more week.
I just did it. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to. Next week, I don't want to get stuck again.
You still will.
So in the Tier 1 Championship Finals for the Couple Ultimate Championship next week, we're going to have Ryan, defending champ, against Nolan, the 3rd seed, who had just one less win than Ryan in the regular season. And this week, actually, if they went toe-to-toe, Ryan would have won by 1.05 points. So, like, these are two extremely evenly matched teams, and hoo boy, it's going to be fun. So congrats, Chris and Jordan, for your battle for 3rd, and even bigger congrats to Ryan and Nolan, who are duking it out for the ultimate prize in fantasy hockey.
Yeah, man, we've never had. I think this is the first time ever we've had even a former champion make the finals, let alone 2 years in a row.
Definitely,
So, yeah,
this is the farthest a defending champ has ever made it.
I was a defending champ last year, and I came 13th. It was hard. But here we are, Brian. Anyways, let's get to today's content. Here's the plan, okay? First of all, I'll mention that Keeping Karlsson are probably presented by DauberHockey.com. Love that site. Frozen Tools. It's incredible. But okay, today what we're going to do is I've brought up a list on Yahoo of everyone ranked by their average fantasy points per game over the past 14 days. Basically, the Cupful Fantasy Playoffs. I want to know who's been coming through for their managers in these playoffs and who's been letting us down. And then for each of these players, we can discuss, do we think that this is like, whatever. For each player, I'll have a good question for you, Brian. That's my job as the host. You don't have to worry about that. But I think it'll be interesting to go through and see who have been the studs. Before we get to the skaters, though, I took a look at the goalies. I was just curious to see, because we've had this conversation like for years now, and everyone loves talking about goalie drafting strategy and what to do with goalies. And for a while on the show, I've always kind of thought, and you always agree, like we both had this idea that like I don't want to spend like too high of a draft pick on a goalie, because like you can't rely on these people when like the moment comes. Like maybe someone like a Hellebuck, a Shesterkin are going to be like reliable for the most part like throughout the season, but in a given playoff week you never know when like a Charlie Lindgren or whoever, like just some random goalie, Philip Gustafsson, like Logan Thompson will end up being like the best goalie in a given week. With the skaters, like I'll tell you right now, in the past couple of weeks, the top 2 fantasy points per game for skaters have been like Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews and Philip Forsberg, and McKinnon is 4th. So it's like, that's reliable. Those are people that, you can set your watch to, they're going to be the best. But yeah, with goalies, you never know. So yeah, I'm taking a look now. Here are some of the goalies that we had ranked super high that really let their managers down. Like Connor Hellebuck just let in 3 goals against Ottawa yesterday, 2 goals against the game before, 4 goals against the game before. Like he's lost 5 in a row. Like Hellebuck has completely let his managers down. And I think of it as like, not only, it's fine, you drafted Hellebuck. I almost wonder if a strategy in general is like, sure, draft your stud goalies. They help you for a while. But then like, I feel like come trade deadline, trade your stud goalies away. If you can get a Barkov, get like a Philip Forsberg. I'll bet you if you had Hellebuck, at your trade deadline, you could have probably flipped him for Philip Forsberg, and look at the Forsberg managers versus the Hellebuck managers now, and you probably could have grabbed a decent-ish goalie. I grabbed Brian Korpisalo out of free agency at the start of this week, was it, or last week? I don't know. Korpisalo's been great in these past couple of weeks, so who knew? He stunk all year. Now when Ottawa obviously is out of the playoffs and now maybe has a chance at a good draft pick, that's their time where they start being good. So they don't get anything, and Korpisalo helps with that. So yeah, I think there's something there. But I'll give you some more names before throwing to you, Brian. Like Georgiev, he's been pretty bad. He just let in 4 goals on 13 shots yesterday before getting pulled. He also like took a penalty, which apparently is why he got pulled. You look at Ilya Sorokin, just totally brutal. His last few starts, he's let in 3, 5, 3, and 5 goals, and then the last couple games he hasn't even played. Patrick Roy's gone with Varlamov, going with the hot hand there. Bobrovsky has been just average. So, Tristan Jarry, by the way, like the worst of all of them, negative couple points in the last two. And then like Sorokin now has been benched for 3 in a row for Nedeljkovic. Maybe we'll talk about Nedeljkovic later in the show. So anyway, all that to say, your high-end goalies maybe let you know. Obviously, I'm leaving out the ones that did do well, but good luck predicting. Yeah, so Shesterkin's been good lately. Ottinger's been good lately. So that's great. Hopefully you pick the right one.
Yeah, exactly. And like you can get performance from really anyone at this point, right? And then in the cupful, in a cats league it's different, right? Like in a cats league, you can, so long as you're hitting your minimum starts, volume might not be that important, especially if saves aren't part of the equation. So like you got to keep that in mind. If volume doesn't matter, then I think these top end goalies are still like, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to figure out, Elon? I'm trying to figure out if this means that the creme de la creme goalies are even more valuable. And I know you just talked about Hellebuyck and Georgiev, who've had some of the best seasons, and Sorokin, because they're less likely to let you down, or if it really...
No, but I don't think that's the lesson, because I just named a bunch of top-end goalies that let you down.
Yeah, so you're making the argument, and I think you're right. I'm trying to come up with like another way to preserve the value. But I think I've been, at least for a couple seasons now, talking about how like go ahead and get your stud and trade him before the deadline. Like trade your high end goalie that you drafted and gets you to where they get you, and then move on. Like Elon, you were talking about your goalies. Like my goalies right now are Logan Thompson, Joseph Woll, Jake Allen, and I added Daniil Tarasov for Monday, hoping he gets a game. And I picked up all the 3 of those guys I've picked up in the last 2 weeks. All 4 actually. So it doesn't matter. Like I think there's enough out there that you can just churn goalies like you would your third or fourth defenseman most years. And yeah, there is value to not having to burn a move on guy. Like I'm trying to figure. I know the question is, if the best goalies out there aren't reliable to be as good as a top skater any given week, should you invest in a great goalie? And I think my answer probably lends similarly to you, Elon, and I think I've already said it, which is you can go ahead and get your high-end goalie, let them take you as far as they can take you, and then at some point deal them for a skater. But I think it's hard to get a top-end skater because most teams make the choice to not invest in that high-end goalie for these exact reasons. So you might, So I don't want to take goalie value completely in the cupful. Like I don't want everyone to be practicing 0 goalies, but I'm not sure that you really ever need to be so committed to anyone, at least in terms of your investment capital, your draft capital.
Yeah, like I'll tell you right now, like we have in Cupful this channel just for me, you, and Kevin, where we see the drops every day that are like potentially questionable. Because obviously we want to make sure no one's like just dropping McDavid or something, just because they're eliminated, especially at this time of year. Like I saw Stuart Skinner dropped in one league, and I like didn't really think twice. I was like, makes sense. I guess, whatever. There's lots of goalies out there. So if this person needed to stream, then the manager was like, oh, no, that was a mistake. Like, I didn't realize. Like, can you reverse it? And it was like, oh, but, if it was like a high end skater, I would have definitely been like alarm bells. So that's where my head is at with goalies at this time of the year, where I just feel like you kind of could just go for anyone, especially in a week like this, where there was so many like backup games you were able to stream in. And we'll see next week, like Jeremy said, an amazing, by the way, matchup maximizer that dropped yesterday. I think Jeremy just knocked it out of the park with so many interesting strategies you can take for your streaming next week. And he brought up the point that there's probably going to be lots of good goalie starts available throughout. So, you have a lot of options. But anyways, that's the goalie talk. I'll be curious to know what people think, like on the Discord, in the episode discussion channel. If you're a patron, like please come in, let us know if you disagree with something. I think it's a really fun conversation to have. At the end of the day, we have so much debate about like the goalie scoring and like should they be weighted higher, should they be weighted lower. I feel like at the end of the day, the problem is like it doesn't matter because like you don't know which goalies are going to be good in a given week. Like over the course of a whole season, like you were saying, like we could kind of predict which goalies are going to be the most valuable ones, and for the most part, that turns out. I wouldn't even say for the most part, but somewhat predictable. But yeah, over a given week, it's just a total crapshoot. But okay, that's goalie talk, Brian. Now, how about let's go to the main portion of the show where, like I said, I just have this list of all the players over the past couple weeks sorted by fantasy points per game according to a couple points. I kind of just want to go down the list. We'll talk about the players as we go. I'll throw you some. We'll discuss them. What do you think?
I love it. It's
Okay.
almost like we've planned this already beforehand and agreed upon it.
Yeah, well, maybe you changed your mind and then you were going to throw me a curveball right now. Be like, actually, I want to do this whole other show topic. And I'd be like, all right, let's
I think
do
I
it.
have done that to you before. So yeah, I'm still on board. Let's go.
All right. So yeah, number one, Connor McDavid. So remember early in the year when he was kind of, I don't want to say struggling, but obviously not playing like McDavid-esque. Like he's definitely made up for it for anyone who obviously held on, or like if you traded for him, like he's coming off now a 2-goal, 1-assist game over Anaheim yesterday. Had a goal, 2 assists in the game before that. 2 assists. Like actually, you have to scroll for a while to find just a non-multi-point game. He actually went pointless against Colorado on March 16th. Since then, it's been 2+ points, game in, game out, 7 shots yesterday. So not much to say about McDavid except for I don't know. Right now he's playing with Hyman and RNH. At least that was versus Anaheim, which, it's always fun when we have some random person. We can be like, this person's playing with McDavid. It never really lasts. But yeah, McDavid is proving himself once again to be worth drafting first overall. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of conversation throughout the season of, Matthews is, whatever, like McKinnon, like maybe is it a little bit closer? But for me, at the end of the day, like just seeing this performance cements it for me that if I had first overall next year, it would be McDavid. Like, I wouldn't think twice.
Yeah. Was it ever not cemented? Like, I guess there was the first couple months of the season, right? Where there was like, what's going on with the Oilers and McDavid, but that's so far in the rearview mirror. So yeah, it cements things, but I also don't feel like it was ever uncemented.
I mean, McKinnon, there have been players who have like definitely had similar average points per game this year, but I feel like the most reliable one is Connor.
Exactly. Like you can have a conversation about guys who might be able to keep up or exceed McDavid's point totals, but there's nobody that you'll feel as confident in.
Okay, so next up, Brian, is Philip Forsberg. In his 6 games over these past couple of weeks, also like McDavid, just multi-point games, game in, game out. Actually, a very like disappointing, only 1 assist yesterday versus Colorado in the 7-4 loss. But of course, Forsberg took 6 shots. His shot totals are incredible. This guy is someone who was like falling far in drafts. I think a lot of us were worried about Forsberg in terms of like injury risk, and also he'd really only had 1 awesome season. But make that 2 now because, yeah, he had those 84 points in 69 games a couple seasons ago. Last year only paced for 69 points, but this year he's already tied his point total from those couple seasons ago, and he still has, 8 games to go on a 93-point pace, surging at the best time for anyone who has him. I have him on my cupful team. So, yeah, Forsberg's been incredible, and, of course, he's brought along a friend, which is always nice, right? Like, just all season long, Gustav Nyquist has retained his fantasy value and has Ryan O'Reilly. But I feel like Nyquist is the one that just like, I feel like all the time people are still asking like, oh, should I play Nyquist, in a streaming, like a sit start decision, or like if you're in a shallower league, like who should I drop? Is it Nyquist? And it's like, he hasn't slowed down all season. Like Forsberg is running hot and Nyquist right along with him. Nyquist on like a streak now of 12 points in his last 8 games. It'll be fun to see both Forsberg and Nyquist like where they get drafted next year. Like is Forsberg a first rounder? Is Nyquist now like a 5th, 6th rounder? Which is kind of like how he's been performing. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, Philip Forsberg, I remember on draft day, and I think I said this on air at several times through the season, that I was picking between Philip Forsberg and Connor Bedard, and I was ready to kick myself. Like, I took Forsberg, I didn't like it, I went safe, or so it felt, and I gave up some upside. But Philip Forsberg has been incredible this season. For the record, like Connor Bedard has also been great, 78-point pace, just over 3 shots per game. But Forsberg is even beating all of that. And I tried to look at the reasons why. And just to 93-point pace for Forsberg, over 4 shots per game. So there's like in every way, Forsberg's been the better bet, which I'm really thankful for. It's good to not have to deal with that draft day regret all season long. But now I'm trying to figure out, okay, Philip Forsberg drafted 69th overall in the Cupful last season. So just to situate that, the forwards taken ahead of Forsberg were, wow, Evander Kane, Brad Marchand, Kempe, Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau.
Oof.
Wow. Wow, we all think we're so smart on draft day, don't we? Isn't that
Well,
crazy?
I drafted Line. I traded him for Uyghur right before he got hurt or like sent to the player assistance program. So
Yeah.
I lucked out there, but man, like that was a bust.
I drafted Liney also. Okay, so in any case, Forsberg goes before that group next year easily, or whoever would be in that position. Like I'm looking at Sebastian Aho, who was taken 52nd, and I'm thinking maybe that's like maybe Forsberg jumps around in my books, and that's because it looks repeatable to me. He's been more involved on the power play, more time on ice on the whole, at even strength. We've talked about Forsberg throughout his career. Like he's always seeing like middle 6 minutes, even though he's a top line player. So this year he got a bit of a minutes bump, and more shots also has been nice from Philip Forsberg. So I'm going to believe in this season, this 93-point pace. Whereas I don't know if you remember, Elon, but when he had an 100-point pace 2 years ago, I did not believe. But I believe in this one because he's doing this with a more sustainable shooting percentage, more shots, and more time on ice.
Yeah, so there you go. It's going to be really fun to see how high Forsberg goes in drafts next year. You know, when you look at Dom Luszczyszyn's model, he it doesn't really like separate out. Like he gives more weight to the more recent seasons, but he's not going to be like, oh, this is like I believe in this, and I don't believe in this. It just kind of like takes all the numbers. So I'll be curious what his projection is for Forsberg. I guess they have now the mechanism where he and Shane add the like the plus beside players. I wonder if Forsberg's going to get a plus to like discount his bad or not as good season a couple years ago. But okay, next up in the list, Austin Matthews. So always nice to see the studs coming through, right? Makes you believe that like it's worthwhile to use your high picks on these guys. Like next up after him is Nathan MacKinnon, who had that streak ended, the home point streak, and apparently it was like there's some like controversy around it. I'm trying to remember now what the controversy was. Like oh yeah, like they said that the goalie scored on or the player scored on his own net, so they took away the assist. But then there was another play in another game where like similarly where the player did get an assist. So anyway, but the streak ended, but McKinnon responded the next game by getting 2 goals and 2 assists versus Nashville. So he's been incredible. I'm not sure I have too much to say about, the Matthewses or the McKinnons of the world, except I guess when we're in Colorado, I should mention that Valerie Nichushkin is out again, which is obviously a bummer for his managers. It's already been confirmed that Nichushkin is going to be out Monday, and then apparently he could join the road trip after that. I feel like whenever they say that, usually they don't end up like playing on the road trip, especially for Colorado when these games don't matter so much. So for what it's worth, in this win yesterday over Nashville, it was McKinnon with Drouin and Rantanen on the top line, and then McKinnon, Drouin, Rantanen, Middlestat, and Makar on the top power play. So I would have thought maybe like Arturi Lehkonen gets a boost or something from Nichushkin being out, but it's like the opposite. Lehkonen loses a good line mate and also still doesn't get top power play. So maybe I have him in couple. Like I'll hold him for Monday. He did score a goal in the last game, though. A goal never seems like as exciting when your team scores 7 and he only had 1 goal and no assists. So yeah, I wonder if Lehkonen is going to be someone. I know we discussed him, I think, on the last episode when you were bringing up guys that might be droppable in this like crazy streaming week. But if you held on to him next week, there's a lot of good options for you. And yeah. Anyways, Nichushkin's out. The beneficiary, I should say, is Casey Middlestat, right? He's the one who got onto that top power play, like was mentioned on short shifts last week. And let me just give a quick check of what Middlestat did with his new deployment, at least in that big win yesterday. Yeah, he scored a goal also, same as Lehkonen. But I would take Middlestat anyways if I had both available for next week.
Yeah. So Lekkonen's goal came on the secondary power play unit. So that's I think I'm trying to confirm that. But I don't see that he spent any time with the top unit.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah. And then Middlestat also scored on the power play, but from the top unit and had 4 shots. So that is the stat line that I will believe more in. And yeah, my stance on Lehkonen has been pretty consistent over the last few weeks. And I think I've generally been right? So I'll keep it the same, especially with no time left in the season after this week. Like there's really not much. I'm with you, Elon. Like you take his game on Monday, and then he might be one of the guys that you drop to add a few extra streaming games into your lineup.
Yeah, and of course the name I didn't like dive into because I guess it kind of seems obvious. If Jonathan Drouin is out there, if you're playing with McKinnon at even strength on the power play, that's very good. So I would take Drouin over Middlestat over like Lehkonen. I think that's a pretty easy choice as the third best forward after McKinnon and Rantanen for like the upcoming week. If it was like if it was like December and we're looking towards the whole season, I would say that I don't know if he's going to hold that spot the whole time, but at this point, just go with the guy in the good spot. Had a goal and an assist yesterday, 5 shots. Like he's nice little resurgence for Drouin, or maybe you call it like a bounce back, or you call it I don't know, Cinderella. I don't know which like idiom you want to use here, but Drouin, after his career seeming like it was almost over, has now 48 points in 71 games, 55-point pace. He's been surging lately. Maybe he gets that up to 60. Well, I guess he won't get there because he missed some games, but maybe in terms of pace. So nice season for Drouin. I don't see why he won't be able to be doing something similar next year.
Yeah, he was close to Mr. Irrelevant in our ADPs, but he was in there. He was on average 233rd overall, and that was juiced by someone who like we had one manager really like with a very vibes based pick on Drouin, but I'd say generally the guys who've been taken around where Drouin is were on average maybe two to 250 is where they got drafted in the last few rounds of the draft, and like he wasn't rosterable the whole way through, but Elon, I'm absolutely like I would take him as a flyer, maybe a touch earlier or maybe not. I guess we'll keep an eye on training camp, but it's nice to think that Jonathan Drouin, now age 29, he just turned 29 a few days ago. Happy belated birthday, Jonathan. That maybe there's some career left in him. This is actually not even easily the best season he's had. The best season he's had was his second year in Montreal, 54-point pace in 81 games, 16 power play points. Sorry, that's his best season since leaving Tampa, when he had a 60-point pace over 73 games and 26 power play points. So since then, he's been between 45 and 55 points. This is the high end of that. It would be nice. This feels like the first time, though, that maybe he can actually build on it. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm sure the confidence is great. He had that experience playing with McKinnon in junior, so it seems like it's going well. Good signing for the Avs. Next up, and so since I brought up Matthews, I guess like quickly over on Toronto, a couple quick notes. Ilya Samsonov came back from his injury. Went pretty well. He shut out Buffalo, making 34 saves. So obviously nice to see. Brian, you said you have Joseph Woll on your Cupful team. He had a good game in that last game versus Washington, which I was at, by the way. It was okay. I was kind of hoping to see Ovi do something. It was pretty even hard to notice Ovi on the ice most of the time, not going to lie. But Woll was good. Before that, Woll had a pretty bad game against New Jersey where he let in 5 goals. Are you thinking like Woll is someone you're like excited to have, or at this point, the Leafs at some point have to, I guess, decide on a starter. I don't think they're going to be one of these creative teams, but I don't think anyone has ever been like of like rotating goalies in the playoffs. So I feel like with Samsonov coming off a good game, I don't know. My guess is the Leafs are going to kind of roll Samsonov for a little bit and see if he can keep up the hot streak he's been on. I'm curious, although I guess he had a couple bad games recently. What do you think between the two?
No, I have no idea. I have no discernible pattern to get here. Like, next week the Leafs have like a half decent schedule. They play twice by Wednesday, so I wonder if there's a chance you get one. But the most either one of them is going to get is 2 starts, and likely one of Samsonov or Woll is going to get just 1. So I don't know.
One of them could get 3, right? There's Monday. Then Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday.
Like, I'm saying, I'm only seeing Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. That's 3 games. You're saying one goal. Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong team. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Just continue. Pretend I didn't interrupt you.
Okay. What was I saying? So, one goalie is likely to play only 1 game. So I'm not sure I want to make a really big bet on which goalie is going to play 2 and which goalie is going to play 1. I think that's the most likely scenario. So I think I'll see if Woll's starting. Like I'll hold him long enough to see if he's starting on Monday, and then if I have to burn a move, I will burn a move early on or you know what? If he doesn't start, maybe I'll keep him till Wednesday. It's actually not a great situation. I'm not thrilled about it. So I think I'll just keep playing this one by ear.
And then Schwab's squad here in the chat just asked, what about Matt Murray? Yeah, Matt Murray has been practicing. I can't even imagine that the Leafs,
Black Ace, Matt
like,
Murray.
they're definitely not going to bring him in. That would be so
Stanley
maybe
Cup
just
winner, Matt Murray. You bring his
I
ring,
guess.
bring his experience into the room.
I mean, in the playoffs, it's nice to have a third goalie just in case someone gets injured. So I guess you could do better than it's not too hard to do better than Martin Jones. I wonder who they would go with between Jones and Murray. But yeah, Sham says the Matt Murray rule. I don't believe he's healthy until he actually plays a game, and I think he has to actually complete a game. Also, if Matt Murray starts a game, I'm still not going to believe he's healthy. He has to make it through the entire game. So we'll see. Maybe it's not nice to make fun of someone's health, but yeah, he's definitely not been a reliable guy in fantasy. That's for sure. Also in Toronto, yeah. So Lilgren is out. This was already discussed on short shifts, but I'll just cover it quickly again. Yeah, so obviously bummer for him. He was doing well, and his fantasy managers were enjoying that. In the last couple of games, it's been Jake McCabe and then Connor Timmins getting top power play. I think it's hard to even predict. McCabe got one game, Timmins I see got top power play in the last game, and actually didn't get a power play point, but had 2 assists against Buffalo. This is a guy who's barely been in the lineup this season, so I'm definitely not going to bank on him. Morgan Riley is out. I don't know if we have an update yet on when Riley is going to return. Leafs practice underway. Morgan Riley not participating, remains day to day. That was a couple days ago, is the last news item I see on Game Day tweets about Morgan Riley. So maybe he'll come back next week. Maybe you can get lucky on a streamer of a McCabe. McCabe is nice, at least he gives you the peripherals, and if you get top power play, it's a bonus. I personally wouldn't be going after Connor Timmins, even though he just had a 2-assist game.
Me neither. And I don't even know, top power play Jake McCabe makes you a little interested, but if your league doesn't really value hits, the peripherals aren't there enough, honestly, to make me unless it's a deep enough league to want to take the chance. The Leafs are, and rightfully so, I think, playing it pretty conservatively. They're up by 4 points on Tampa with 9 games remaining. I mean, they've got to win, but you see Marner was moved to long term. They're not rushing him back. They're not rushing Riley back. I think they've got the long game in mind here. And what's the difference, right? If they drop to 4th and their first round opponent might change from Florida to Boston, which seems like a pretty even flip.
Yeah.
So if it's a bummer. If you're I know the league that I've been contending in all season long, having Marner out this long has pretty much ended my run. So it's been a bummer, and that's not great timing. And we sort of say this back at the draft, that if you're choosing between 2 equal guys, try and one potential tiebreak option is to pick the guy who's going to be on a team that might be more likely to be involved in some kind of playoff race towards the end of the season. And Toronto Maple Leaf is not that guy.
Yeah, Shams is asking thoughts on Bobby McMahon. I think we talked about him last week. He's playing on a line with Nylander and Tavares. He's been good. He scored a goal in that game that I went to. So, yeah, he's a good, solid. I mean, look, there's a lot of options Jeremy went through yesterday for streamers. You could definitely do worse than Bobby McMahon. I think he seems like a solid guy. He's going to get you some periffs. He's in a good spot. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple points at least in those 4 games, maybe 3 points. I like him. I don't love him, but I like him. So I don't know if that's helpful. But that's
exactly
Shams, what do you think?
How I feel about him too. The 7-shot game against Washington was appealing. That put him more on my radar. But I think more often than not, he's not going to do a whole lot for you. But he's got as good a chance as anybody who's not consistently doing stuff to do something.
Okay, so next on this list, we've gone through, again, we're going through the points leaders over the past 14 weeks in average fantasy points per game using a couple scoring. So McDavid, Forsberg, Matthews, McKinnon, and then there's Artemi Panarin, and then there's Nikita Kucherov. So again, no surprises based on what we've been seeing all year. It is fun to look back and see Panarin wasn't drafted that high. Right? I'm looking at our ADP spreadsheet for all of our cupful drafts, and Panarin was going on average around 38th overall. So that's there's 14 players per team. So that's not even early 3rd round. That's late 3rd round. You were getting Panarin, and he's had an incredible season. I'd imagine that he's going to have a much higher, fantasy ADP next season. I guess the question is, do you believe in it? Like obviously we believe in Panarin as an awesome player, but like last year, he paced for 92, the year before 105. So, like around that, like, I think that's fair. That's what I thought his range would be. But yeah, this year he's pacing for 119, going off especially recently. Like he's coming off a big 1 goal, 3 assist game in the 8-5 win over Arizona. He also had like a hat trick a couple weeks ago against Boston, 2 goals against Florida. Like I don't think Panarin was ever such a big goal scorer. I guess that's the big difference, right? Last year, Panarin had 29 goals. His career high is 32 goals until this year. 44 goals for Panarin. I've never thought of him as a big goal scorer. Is this just, you think, a high shooting percentage thing, or has he changed? I see he's taking more shots than he used to.
Well, he did have one big season that was not quite as big as this one. He had 32 goals in 69 games. That's his best goal scoring season so far. This season, though, one thing's different about Panarin from all other seasons, and that is that he's shooting so much more. And I agree with you, Elon. Like Panarin coming up around 40th, he's not going to be available at 40th, or at least I don't think he should be available at 40th this year. He's got a 119-point pace. This is the 4th time in 5 years as a Ranger that Panarin has paced for over 100. Career high 38 power play points, 263 shots and counting. Panarin's increased his shot attempts per 60 by 50%. Like that's a massive jump, especially from somebody who's like not in like a terribly different situation and is in his age 32 season. So it's a huge jump, 50% in shot attempts at 5-on-5, easily career highs there in shot rates too, and expected goals rates. Panarin also with the best line production he's ever had as well. So I like just about everything that I'm seeing about Artemi Panarin this year, and I think that this is not a fluke. I hope the shots keep coming next year. I hope the line production stays as strong as it has been, and I'm on board for bumping him up 5, 10, 15 spots next year. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about his line, so his line has been with Trocheck and Lafreniere, and those guys are also on this list, right near the top of fantasy points per game in these fantasy playoffs, right? Like Lafreniere is averaging 8.42 fantasy points per game, obviously buoyed a lot by his hat trick and 2 assists, 5-point game for Lafreniere in this game against Arizona yesterday. Just huge for someone who was potentially a streamer at one point this season. Like he was in free agency in my league, like on and off for a little while to start the year before he finally just got held forever and for good reason. And he's still like a young guy. It's possible that Lafreniere still can become a better player. So that's obviously a good sign for Panarin, and also a great sign for Lafreniere that he seems to be clicking with Panarin. Obviously the big thing for Lafreniere will be if he could ever get top power play. You'd think maybe one day, but this has been an incredible season for him. And yeah, just a huge game. He also had a 2-goal game a couple games back against Philly. So yeah, great week for anyone who had Lafreniere. He was like potentially your MVP if you didn't have Panarin.
Yeah, and I've been talking about, I think I've been beating the Lafreniere drum pretty regularly over the course of the season, just giving these updates as he continues to be fantasy relevant, but not on the top power play. He's a 58-point pace for Lafreniere this season, who was drafted in the same spot as Jonathan Drouin, and you can win your league, right, with those late picks. Quiet breakout is the way I've sort of characterized Lafreniere's season. The thing is that to get all the way up to the next level, he needs to find his way to the top power play. And so I went to the Rangers cap friendly page and I was like, okay, well, let's look at the 4 forwards, see when they're done. Panarin is the next contract there to expire, which is 2 more years after this one. At the end of 2025-26, Chris Kreider's contract expires the year after, and then Zibanejad and Trocheck's contracts go even further beyond. So I don't know for sure how or when Lafreniere gets there to the top power play unit. Like I don't want him
injury, right?
I think injury is the only and I guess I have a little concern at this moment that like he's gonna fall into like the Nick Ehlers situation, and I'm not talking inconsistency, but just in being like a quality player who just there's not apparently room for him to play on the top unit. But the thing is that even like Ehlers, even if Lafreniere doesn't get to the top unit, he seems pretty rosterable in the meantime. And I know the temptation is to be like, well, Vincent Trocheck is nothing special. But have you seen what he's doing lately? Banana Town. Yeah, he's got 28 points in his last 21 games, 10 goals and 18 assists. He's shooting 15% in this stretch, which is like not ridiculous, like not preposterous. 6 power play points, 83-point pace for Trocheck on the season. As always, he's been fantastic at 5-on-5, and he's putting up the second best power play point production of his career, 23 points on the power play with 11 goals, which is basically exactly what he did in his best power play year back in his first breakout in Florida back in 17-18. So the thing with Trocheck, though, is we never know where he's going to go from one year to the next, but I don't know. I don't see why the Rangers would break up this line. I don't see why they'd break up the power play. So Trocheck drafted down at 147 last year. He could be somebody who I'd be happy to pick up. Like I'm looking even 30 spots ahead of that. The forwards I see are Zegras, Kreider, Horvat, and I'm thinking maybe that's around where Trocheck belongs. And there's obviously some guys picked ahead of those guys who wouldn't be, so bump him up even a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem is, Brian, I think I do see a pattern with Trocheck's career.
Yeah.
He had that breakout in 2017-18, 75-point pace. I'll tell you the paces. Okay, 75, then 51 and 50, then 75, and then 52 and 63, then 83 this year. Doesn't that mean now he's due for another 2 bummer years before the next good one?
That's why I said, like, I have no idea what to expect next year from him. Like, we know there's this pattern, and we do end up drafting him, or I think we've cooled to it, though, drafting him on the high end of what we see, because we never know what's coming next. But like I said, I don't know why. I don't know if I felt as strongly this way as the other 2 times that Trocheck's hit a high water mark, but I don't know why anything would change.
No, I agree with you. And with Panarin just like breaking out to this next level, you want his exposure. And yeah, Shams is bringing up a good point in the chat here. I was wrong thinking about Filip Chytil. Remember when we thought Filip Chytil was finally going to get to the top 6? Now it just seems like so impossible. Like Trocheck is not getting bumped. I guess maybe a lot could change. You know, like maybe the next season, and also we still have a whole playoffs to go through, right? That's what's fun. Like we're end of the regular season for us fantasy players. Like okay, vacation time. Though we do have the Keeping Karlsson playoff pool coming up, which Brian definitely remind me to talk about at some point. But
oh my gosh, we should have already talked about it.
Okay, well how about this? We're done talking about the Rangers. I think we're going to go to break, and then when we come out of the break, I'm going to talk about the playoff pool, and then we'll continue down this fun list of studs over the past couple of weeks. We will be back in just a sec. Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. All right, Brian. So far we've gone down this list. We've hit McDavid. We've hit Forsberg, Matthews, McKinnon, Panarin, and his friends, Kucherov. Next, okay. Finally, after this, the list has some players that aren't like the most obvious people. So I think it'll be fun to let people know who else have been the creme de la creme from these past couple of weeks. Before we get to it, are you the creme de la creme of predicting NHL playoffs? Like, look, probably not. Like, if you're in a like standard playoff pools, you know how it goes. This is gonna be like my infomercial here. You know how it goes. You try to come up with a team that you think is gonna do well. You draft players from that team. Next thing you know, that team's eliminated in the first round. And like, my playoff pool's over. So frustrating. Well, that doesn't have to be this way because you could join the Keeping Karlsson playoff pool where we have a ton of fun every year. It's a tried and true format that I've really enjoyed where we just draft for one round at a time. It's like a survivor style pool. So anyone could sign up. Last year, what did we have? Like, I think it was like 22 divisions of like 13 people each. So I don't know, do the math there. It was like 200 maybe people who played. We make as many divisions as possible. And then we're all drafting for the first round. And then like a certain number of people will advance. You know, the top, let's say 4 or 5 of every league will advance to the second round. Everyone else is eliminated. And then the people who advance, we reshuffle everyone. And then we draft again for the second round. And then we're going to, eliminate some more. Reshuffle for the draft for the third round. So every round, if you make it, you get to draft again. So you don't have to worry about how far my team's going to go. I guess you still do have to worry about like how many games your series will go. Like maybe, you're like, oh, I don't want to draft McKinnon because I think that the Avs are going to sweep. Whatever. That's a decision you can make for yourself. But anyways, it's always a ton of fun. And this is a perk we give to the patrons of Keeping Karlsson. If you're a patron of our products, if you like what we do here, then another perk we're going to throw out there, aside from being in our community and all the other stuff, is you'll play in our playoff pool. And the winner gets a badge on the Discord, so you're remembered all time as a legend. And also, we usually send a prize. like a shirt, like a jersey or a shirt, or probably not a jersey, but something cool. So sweatshirt. So yeah, definitely keep a lookout. I'm planning on posting that like tomorrow, the sign up registration. So if you want to play in the playoff pool, keep your eyes open in our Keeping Karlsson Discord for the link to register.
Do you want me
Any
to say
thoughts,
something?
Brian? No, you don't have to. Okay, so I'll keep going. But with that, Brian, let's continue down our list here. Guess who's next? It's a guy we talked about last week. We kind of debated, Brian. I don't know. I think in the end, like we ended up pretty much agreeing. But you were kind of like maybe suggesting that even though he was hot, maybe it's you have to consider dropping a Jamie Benn uh, going into this week. But anyway, hopefully nobody dropped Jamie Benn because he's just had the most incredible week. He was already, like I said, on this great goal streak, and he just kept it going. He's now scored goals in 6 straight games. Or actually, no, finally he had a nothing game against Seattle. But still, overall, Jamie Benn was giving you like 11 couple points in a game. The game before that, 15.5. Like, he's just been incredible. And who knows how long it'll last. But I think, yeah, continuing into next week, you're obviously going to just keep riding the Ben streak. It's like, he's on that top power play. And at even strength, I do like that he gets to play with some of these young players like Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven. I don't know why I said like there. Those are the people. Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven. Wyatt Johnston also has been really good lately. So, yeah, Ben is fun for the rest of this season. And then he'll be another really tricky person to peg in drafts next year.
Yeah, he like Ben is one of those guys who it's almost a little frustrating that he didn't just stay down. But he's been on fire. We talked about this last show. In his last 20 games, he's pointed in 17 of them and has several multi-point efforts amongst them. Of course, power play production is a big chunk of that. So that's really where Ben continues to specialize. I wonder how much longer Jamie Benn, like if Jamie Benn can stave off Wyatt Johnston or Logan Stankoven long enough for like Pavelski to eventually be the one to cede the top power play spot to them. I don't know. But yeah, Ben's I've got to say, I still don't know that I'm feeling like so interested in drafting Jamie Benn next year, just because like it's a risk, right? And I don't know that like you can win, but I don't know how big you can win. I'm looking at where he was drafted this year, 167. Other forwards drafted around Ben. You know what I'll say? Other wingers drafted around Ben were Seth Jarvis, Patrick Kane, Lucas Raymond, Victor Arvidsson, Arturi Lehkonen. That sounds about right.
I mean, yeah, but you go back beyond the draft. Like I picked him up as a free agent, so like whatever. Regardless of where he was drafted, at some point this year he was dropped in a lot of leagues, and for good reason. He was super cold for a super long time. But I think the one thing that will keep me more interested in Ben is if we go into training camp next year. We'll see how the playoffs go, of course. But if he's like once again lining up with Stankoven and Johnston, to me that's like a really good thing because those two are only going to get better. Not to say that like they're dragging Jamie Benn, but like if I see Ben is still on the top power play and playing with those guys, that gets me excited. Like starting the year, he was on who was on his line to start the year? It was like Sam Steele, was it? And I don't know. It just wasn't exciting people. Like maybe Johnston, but he was just a rookie. Now next year he'll be already having more experience. So that would be a good thing for Ben. Obviously he has to hold up. He's like, not getting any younger, but definitely, as a 34-year-old, even with a lot of mileage, especially with the type of game he plays, he's showing that, I guess with the right people playing with him, he can be really productive still.
He's still talking about Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I can just continue.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Brian, we go to the Capso. So this was a good and a bad, and then a bonus good because Yahoo's dumb. But Tom Wilson only played 2 games before getting suspended. When I'm looking at this again, I'm looking at average fantasy points over the last 14 days, and Tom Wilson is way up there because he had a goal and an assist versus Calgary. Then he had an assist versus Toronto in a game where he smacked his stick into Noah Gregor for no reason, and then he got suspended for 5 games. So obviously that was disappointing, but you got a little bit of a reprieve. You didn't have to drop him because Yahoo gave him an O instead of susp. I don't know why. Did anyone ask them? Did they like all season long suspended players have gotten susp and you can't put them in IR plus? But I guess Yahoo did it differently this time for no reason. But anyway, not much to say. Tom Wilson is someone that for a while this season we were also talking about as like kind of being kind of like an Evander Kane edit, right? Just like, well, he was good for a while. Like he's always been good for periffs, but he's not producing. He was on the fourth line for a bit, but definitely I'm glad. Like I have him in this dynasty league with Victor, which by the way we just won today, which was very exciting. And Brian, we won by like 0.6 fantasy points. Like it was insane. It was a very exciting game of the Canucks versus the Ducks, and we had like all these random like low level Canucks on our team that we had streamed in on Monday to get the Monday and the Sunday, like Pew Suter, Mikhaev, Lafferty. Like I was cheering for all these just total scrubs, and we just pulled it off. But anyways, we have Tom Wilson in that league, and going into the playoffs, I was kind of thinking because we had to make some tough drops to optimize for the playoffs, and I was wondering if Tom Wilson was a drop because of how badly he was doing. Definitely glad I didn't drop him. We'll see how he does next year, but he's definitely showing that he has some offensive chops still, like when he's not suspended, of course.
I guess. Like, how convinced? I don't know, Ethan. Like, what kind of sample are you basing this on?
Just like the last month or so, he was getting a decent number of points.
Yeah.
I'll give you I don't know. It's like a 70-ish point pace since February 22nd.
Has he been that good? Yeah. But I'm also counting up the games. It's like 12 games that he's played.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe he's not as Tom Wilson isn't as bad as like he was looking for most of the season, but I also don't know that he's this good. Like he's been a straight up 55 point pace player for the last 5 years, and I don't see much reason to change that. And if anything, I'd put him down before I put him up. Maybe I'm too down on Tom Wilson.
Well, I know you're down on Evander Kane, who's a very similar player in fantasy, like lots of hits. I guess not. Like I guess Kane has also generally been really great for shots. But anyway, Kane is some like going into next year's drafts. Like, who are you more into? Or actually, before even talking about next year, I feel like we need to focus because Tom Wilson's suspension is going to be over. He's going to have one more game of being suspended. We'll see where he lines up with Washington next week. Like right now, like Shams is asking, is there a forward you want other than Strome and Ovi right now for next week? Maybe like Tom Wilson. Obviously, you have to see the lines, but he was on that nice run. Maybe he does end up lining up with Ovi to start next week. In which case, I would definitely be interested in the last game for Washington. The lines were Ovi with Oshie and Connor McMichael, Pacioretty, Milano, Lapierre. Yeah, like after that, and then Dylan Strome centering Protas and Miroshnichenko. So yeah, a lot of fun young players, by the way, on this team. That will be good in the future. Who knows if it'll be enough with Ovechkin not on the team. But yeah, it'll be fun to see. I'm interested to see where Tom Wilson slots in.
Me too. I'll watch. I'll check it out. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I might prefer Max Pacioretty. I might just go with Patches. He's got 3 assists in his last 4 games. He's barely shooting. But I think that's enough for me.
Okay, it sounds like it's just a gut feeling at this point.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
After that, it definitely.
I wonder if this is the end for Pacioretty, by the way. It's been such a disappointing season since coming back from injury.
You think
he doesn't have a contract for... he doesn't have a contract for next year. He's 35 years old, so like there's got to be more in the tank. I assume some team takes a chance on him, and he's shooting only 4% this year. That's crazy. So he deserves to have done better. Like I don't think he's this done. And he's only played 80 games in the last 3 seasons combined. So you know what? I'm going to take it back. It's not the end for Max Pacioretty, but I'm curious to see what team takes a chance on him, and if it's a team that has opportunities for like good deployment.
Yeah, like I think to be fair, he's definitely not the Pacioretty of old. When you say he's like not this done because of like bad numbers, but like his numbers are like an NHL caliber player, right? Like has like 20 points in 38 games. That's a person who can get an NHL job. Like obviously it's like disappointing considering he used to be like one of our top wingers in fantasy for a couple of years with all those incredible shots, and the shots have gone away. But seems like he's been a serviceable guy. He's playing like decent minutes, so I'm like, that's pretty impressive even what he's doing considering the crazy injury he came off of. And who knows, maybe another summer of rehab, or no, I guess not rehab, just to be able to have a normal summer of training instead of doing rehab maybe helps a lot. But I think it's impressive. He's been playing like over 16 minutes a game. Good for you, I'm going to say, Max Pacioretty. And I definitely think that a team should take him next year, assuming he doesn't make his injury worse somehow in the meantime.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I'll counter just by saying like Max Pacioretty isn't in a lineup to be a bottom six player, right? Like if he's not giving top six production, he might be able to find someone who can play more of a role in the bottom six.
Yeah.
But I'm
Okay,
not saying
we'll
I'm
see.
not like maybe I might have meant more to clarify like maybe he's done in fantasy,
Yeah,
but
that I
I
agree with.
also like but just seeing that his contract's up, I'm just really curious to see what his off season looks like.
hmm Okay, next up, here's a fun one, Brian. Next in this list, again, I'm looking at a list of fantasy points per game over the last 14 days. Next up, Josh Doan. Only 3 games, not as big sample size as everyone else, but this is a guy who was called up from the minors. 2 goals against Columbus in his first NHL game, then 2 assists in the next game versus Nashville, and then an assist yesterday versus the Rangers. So we're looking at 5 points in 3 games for Josh Doan. Also took 6, 5, and then 1 shot in those 3 games. So we're looking at 12 shots in 3 games. Nice start to the career for the son of Shane Doan. Brian, I guess I don't know. I don't have to ask like who is this guy. Like he's not like a total nobody. Like Josh Doan is someone who was drafted. I think it was in the second round. I'm just bringing it up now. Yeah. Oh yeah, second round of what do I have here? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Second round, 37th overall, a couple years ago in 2021. So he has somewhat of a pedigree. Obviously, nobody was expecting this, but yeah, it'll be fun to see what he can do both for the rest of this season and then like moving forward. Obviously, this is like pretty insane of a start for a guy playing with Michelli and Jack McBain. Though we do know that Michelli is good at dishing the puck, so Doan is benefiting from that. He's not playing on the power play. I think there's other Arizona players I would still be streaming ahead of him, like especially if you could get like a Nick Bjugstad who. But okay, I'll move on to other. I have some other Arizona players I want to bring up, but first, Josh Doan, Brian. Let's give him some flowers. What a start to his career.
Let's give him some flowers. Sure.
You don't know that saying?
Like I guess so. It just
You
didn't
scoff at my
seem
sayings often.
so sorry. No, I'm trying to.
I guess people more so say like give him his flowers and not give him some flowers. Maybe I biffed it a little bit.
He doesn't need to be Miley Cyrus at the moment, right? Because someone else will. I don't know. This is getting worse by the minute. So I'm just gonna.
some flowers. I know that song.
Josh Doan, born in Scottsdale. Yeah, when Shane was playing there, about 6 years into the franchise's move from Winnipeg to Phoenix, and like he's like super local. He played at Arizona State for a couple of years. He just turned 22. He's
Does he still live at home?
Like it's very possible. Why wouldn't
He's never
he?
left.
Why wouldn't he live at home? Live at home.
Does
You'll
he-
save money.
Does he drive his parents' cars to the games?
It's a really so many great questions, Elon, and this is why we need to keep in Karlsson. Just another example why we need a traveling beat writer on staff. Doan just turned 22. He's drafted his early second round pick in 2021. And like he's never been the most highly touted prospect, and the early returns in the NHL are great for Josh Doan. But also in the AHL, he leads Tucson in points of the AHL. He's got 46 points in 62 games. 26 of those points are goals. And he's second in points per game behind Aku Ratti, who I believe is a relation to Atu Ratti, the better known Ratti from the Bo Horvat deal. So we'll see what comes. I don't know, like if his value is really high, like everyone's so excited, right? Like hockey, like people go nuts for this. Oh, look, it's the son of a captain. Like if Daniel Alfredson's kid ever played in Ottawa, like it would be crazy, right? So I think that's what's happening in Arizona, and the press around it is good. So I'd say the only fantasy implications here are if you happen to be in a deep enough dynasty where you have Josh Doan, see what you can sell him for. Because I'm going to go out there and say this could be the highest his stock ever is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like you never know, maybe he'll surprise us. But yeah, he wasn't someone when he was drafted that I recall people being super excited about. I don't know if Victor's listening. He could chime in, tweet at us, or mention on the Discord if we think you have it wrong. But I don't recall Victor talking a lot about Josh Doan on his podcast, Fantasy Hockey Life. I'm looking at Shane Doan's Elite Prospects page, and it shows some relations. His second cousin is Carey Price. So I guess Josh Doan's second cousin once removed is Carey Price. That's fun.
Cool.
That. Cool. Okay. So since we're on Arizona, another player that I already mentioned, Nick Bjugstad, he's been playing on the line with Schmaltz and Keller lately, and Bjugstad is going off. He's got 7 points in his last 6 games, goals in 4 straight, coming off a goal and an assist versus the Rangers. And yeah, like I say, he's getting top line deployment. He's producing there. Great to see. right? This is someone that definitely, if I wanted to stream in someone from Arizona, and like maybe that's like a big if because they don't have the best schedule next week. Arizona plays Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. But hey, come Wednesday morning, especially if you're full on Saturday. You know, it depends on your roster. Like Saturday's not so crazy busy, but if you're full on Saturday and it's Wednesday morning and you can get 3 games for the rest of the week, I think Bjugstad's someone to look at, assuming he's still centering that top line.
Yeah, it's a nice little run from Bjugstad to end out the season. It's completely unsustainable. He's got a goal in 8 of his last 12 games. Those 8 goals have come on 30 shots, which means he's scoring on more than a quarter of the shots he takes. But, you know, when you're hot, you're hot. And that's what it comes down to at this time of the season. So Nick Bjugstad, Logan Cooley also ending his season with a nice little run. He had a hat trick the other night. Decent rookie season from Cooley. Like I know we were kind of hoping that he'd just be able to jump in and be like a higher end productive NHLer. Not there, but he has a year of experience now. Just over a half point per game, 16 minutes a night on the second power play. But what I'm watching right now from Cooley beyond the production is he's ending the year playing the most minutes he's seen since early December. And so I'm gonna keep watching that time on ice and deployment towards the end of the year to see if, this is a chance to maybe build a little more capacity and hope that he can step up in a bigger way. I mean, obviously, the hope is that he's going to step up. It's just a matter of how big a step he's ready to take.
Yeah, I think a guy like Logan Cooley is the exact type of person I want to be drafting next year in like the 12th round. You know, like if he falls far enough where it's like, okay, I can grab I'm trying to think of an example of just like a reliable but low upside guy that I can go with. Like maybe I'm thinking like a Matt Duchene. Maybe he has a higher upside. He's shown for, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could take an older player who seems like decent, not going to go insane. I would definitely be excited to take a Cooley instead, who like, sure, it doesn't work out. You can drop it, but like he's got a super high pedigree. A lot of people say he was like the best pick in his draft if there was to be a redraft. And yeah, he's got this year of experience. I could totally see him exploding next year and being like the best sophomore of, well, aside from Connor Bedard, of course. So yeah, I think Cooley is a really interesting guy going forward. Him and also Dylan Guenther. I think both of them are going to be fun. Like Arizona, I guess I've been saying this a while now. I do think they should be good soon. I don't know. Like, I guess we'll see if it happens next year. Like, they've got a lot of really exciting young players. But okay, let's continue down this list after Josh Stone. We've been going for a while. I guess, well, you know, this is how we do Keeping Karlsson episodes. We see a guy, then we talk about some other players related to that player, and then by the end, we're like, oh, we only talked about like 5 people from our list. But okay, so Lafreniere we discussed. The next here on our list of average fantasy points per game over the last couple of weeks, Tage Thompson. Brian, Tage finally taged. When I drafted him at the end of the first round in this couple season, my main thought, I remember, and like I said this on the podcast, I'm sure, was like, I want a guy who like can like just win me a week. Like, you know, like last year he would have a couple, like a 4-goal game, a 5-goal game, and everyone would just be like, I got taged. I lost my matchup because my opponent had Tage. Like, I wanted to be that, you know, and it finally happened in a matchup that doesn't mean that much to me. I guess I'm happy to be now in the consolation finals like we discussed. But yeah, what a performance against New Jersey. 4 goals. Sure, one was on the empty net, but still counts. Didn't get anything, obviously, in the shutout the next game against Toronto, but did take 4 shots. It's been a great run for Thompson recently. A lot of shots, like everything looking really good. Too late for me to win, but and also I'm just gonna say right now, it's still too late for me to consider him a first round pick next year. Like, oh, like here, Brian, I've got a comparison for you because you've been sort of like, I think maybe whatever. Okay, I'm gonna throw a comparison next year. Tage Thompson versus Artemi Panarin, someone who was ADP like around 15 versus someone who was ADP like 39 after the seasons they've had. Is it like an easy choice to go Panarin next year?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Well, we're bumping Panarin up like 20, 10 to 20 spots, and we're bumping Tage down maybe 15 to 20, 30 spots. And so they'll pass each other on their respective ways down and up. It is nice to see Tage do his thing though. 14 points, 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points in 11 games for Thompson. 42 shots, 19% shooting, and actually the almost 4 shots per game, Thompson has been really doing that consistently through the season. He's just been scoring on half as many of them. So there's a bit of a shooting percentage heater helping Tage out right now. Still in this run of 11 games and 14 points, only 2 of them coming on the power play. Still don't know when and where those power plays points are going to come from. And like you said, Elon, what Thompson's doing right now doesn't make up for everything, right? This is a look at what could have been. And, we just don't have enough of a track record from Thompson now. He's had 2 good years of shooting percentage, followed by this present one, which has been a downgrade. And we don't know the norm. And so I think we're going to have to watch. And I didn't want to be in the watching space for Tage Thompson, but I think that's where we're at. I think it's undeniable what we've seen from Thompson is that he can take games over. And there's also been some bad variance for him, like low IPP at 5-on-5, low on ice shooting percentage. His team is not as dangerous when they're on the ice. Neither is Tage. The coach is the same, though. It's still Don Granat, so I'm not sure exactly what's changed so that Thompson is down 35 points from his 99-point pace last year. And thinking about Thompson next year, I think this, for now, I'll put him somewhere in between the 63-point pace he's on now and the 99-point pace last year. That's not to say the upside for 100 points. Like, I'm not calling last year a complete stroke of luck at all. I still think that's attainable, but I just don't know. And I'm looking at Tage's line mates through the season, and they've sort of circulated, and he's doing really well with Tuck and Paterka right now. And I'm wondering partially if maybe that's the solution. If this is the unit, or it's just a coincidence that they're succeeding, right? That Tage is succeeding at this moment with them. So yeah, lost faith in Tage Thompson, not writing him off entirely, but definitely not looking like a top 30 pick, even top 40 pick next year.
Yeah, like I will say that he did have some injury trouble to start the year. I don't want to make excuses, but like maybe it's possible he had something hampering him. I don't know if we'll find out some more information after the season. Like I don't know, but like what if like now that he's healthy, like this is like the real Tage, and like so,
yeah,
you could win your league next year
if you get Tage. 40th or 50th overall next year. That could be a league, like a season making moment for you. Yeah.
It could be like Panarin this year. Could be Tage next year if you get him at the right time. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna like ignore him if he falls far enough. But just like in the first round, I'll take someone who feels a little more reliable for sure. Off air for what's his name again? The person who always says first pick.
Or
like number one, R Pete. For R Pete, the code word is flowers. So that's let us know if you made it this far. Okay. Next up on the list, Brian, as we're scrolling down all of our studs from the past couple of weeks, Mikko Rantanen, we already talked about the Avs. Here's Dante Fabro, a defenseman for Nashville, who just played 1 game yesterday and scored a goal and had 6 shots. So I don't know if you're in a deep enough league. I guess you have to definitely make sure if he's even going to be in the lineup. But he was on the top pairing I'm seeing with Roman Josi. That's not nothing. Nashville's looking good. So I don't know. You'd have to be in a really deep league to look at Dante Fabro. But if you see that he's going to be, on the squad for April 2nd on Tuesday versus Boston, I don't know. 6 shots in a game is pretty good, but we'll need more than that to be worth a deep dive on keeping Karlsson. I guess we already talked about Nashville when we talked about Forsberg and Nyquist. Any thoughts?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No. Braden Point comes up next. So, so we still have a bunch of studs where there's not really much to say except for like good for them. Sidney Crosby is next. He had a great couple of weeks. Really incredible what he's doing at his advanced age. Sid the Kid still among the best in the league, coming off a run of, so in his last 4 games, he had a goal and 3 assists and a goal and 2 assists. It's like 4 points, then 3 points, then 2 points, and in his last game, only 1 point, an assist versus Columbus. So I guess that means tomorrow it'll finally be the 0 points if we're again going to just read into these patterns. But also lots of shots. Like Crosby's great. I mentioned at the top that one person who isn't great is Tristan Jarry, who definitely let his managers down. He's been dropped in my couple division. After I actually traded him. I drafted him and then traded him. That was also a good trade for me in the end. I ended up getting Nichushkin. Not that he's going to help me in these finals, but unfortunately. But Tristan Jarry had good stretches, but now he's on a cold streak, so much so that Pittsburgh has decided to play Alex Nedeljkovic for the last few games. And of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that that'll continue. Maybe like now that we mention it, next week Jari will get the first game, and then he'll do well, and then so who knows? But it definitely seems now like it's a total coin flip to me. If like it's going to be Jari or Nedeljkovic. Like Brian, I have this website, GameDayTweets.com, and I have goalie guesses for any game where the goalie start hasn't been announced. I show a guess, and the way it's powered by in the back end in the database I have for each team, I have a starter marked and a backup, and then I also have a checkbox of whether it's like alternating or not, and that uses all that information. So what should I do with Pittsburgh right now? That's my question for you. Who's the starter, who's the backup, and are they alternating or not alternating? What should I do for my goalie guesses?
Wow. I don't feel like you have a category available. Like, is coin flip a possibility
Well, then I would just put them as alternating.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's alternating. I don't
Okay.
think like Nedeljkovic has become the starter.
I've
But
just changed it. I had it as Jari starter, Nedeljkovic backup, not alternating. I've switched it to alternating.
I think that's fair. It's been a while since Jari's been like solid, and there's Nedeljkovic also hasn't been solid. It's almost like there's like I don't even know honestly what the motivation is right now for Pittsburgh. And what they're going are they looking to next year to try and figure out what they have, or are they just playing out the season? Like Nedeljkovic might get a couple more games because he was on a 1 year, $1.5 million contract this season, and so he's playing for a job next year, and so maybe Pittsburgh's giving him that opportunity. That's all. That's the only sort of storyline I can see here because Jari doesn't need more games. He's played enough this season. Neither guy has been terribly good, and the Penguins aren't going anywhere one way or another.
Yeah. When you ask like what's their motivation, like I don't know, to not embarrass Dubas like too badly, to not embarrass Dubas too badly. But yeah, obviously such a disappointing season. Erik Karlsson is not going to be coming up on this list of top fantasy points over the past couple of weeks. I think he's pointless. Just a huge disappointment. Also, him just letting his managers down, letting us, his podcast namesake, down. Do better, Erik Karlsson, next year. Come on. Even though Pittsburgh's probably going to be worse. I don't think they're going to be re-signing Jake Gensel. Next up, Brian, we've got Roman Josi, a couple defensemen, Roman Josi, and then Matthias Ekholm. Brian, where the heck did this come from? Like, I feel like I asked you on a show. I'm blaming you here. I had him in my dynasty league, like as a cap league, and he has a big cap hit for still another few years. And I thought he was going to be like a really solid guy. Like going into the year, he did so well with the Oilers before, like paced for around 50 points. And then this year, he wasn't doing anything, even though he was on the ice with McDavid and Dry, and like they were doing great. Anyways. At some point, I figured like I wanted to pick up some free agents, but I didn't have the cap space. I paid to dump Matthias Ekholm in my dynasty league. Like someone got Ekholm and a pick or prospect, I don't remember, to take him off my hands, and now he's like just on this incredible hot streak. I'm seeing like points in 4 straight. Like you look at his shots, he's at 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, like huge shot games for Ekholm. Hits and blocks also. He's light. His game log is just bling, 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 bling. It's like it's incredible here, and I paid someone to take him for me.
I don't know what
how
to tell
badly
you.
did I blow it?
I like Ekholm. I don't know where any of this is coming from. I don't see like any material differences aside from the scoring. I mean, he is taking like 3 shots per game, which is like
an
extra.
That before.
He's been taking like a couple shots per game, so it's not like that crazy. And like he's sort of but several games with 3, 4, 5 shots. That's out of character, but he's playing the same number of minutes. His power play deployment hasn't changed. I think this is like, it's been a while since we've seen Ekholm do this, but you remember, right? Like his whole career, he's usually had 1 or 2 or even 3 of these a season, and he hadn't had his yet, Elon. So I think he was just due for the completely random scoring surge that he hasn't had for a while. That's all I got. I'm sorry. It's a bummer.
Yeah, well, I mean, good for anyone who has him. Obviously, you're enjoying a defenseman that was definitely available in free agency earlier on in the season, and now is almost for sure not. He's been fantastic, and the Oilers are obviously going to be banking on him to keep this up going into their playoffs. Okay, let's continue down this list here. So we got Trocheck we talked about. Oh, there's Sebastian Aho coming up next here. Again, like another stud. We shouldn't be too surprised, but yeah, he's really turned it on lately. And he'll be another person that I wonder if his like draft stock goes up a bit next year. But maybe that's a conversation to have at another time. Next up, unless you have something you really want to say about Aho, then we have Kempe, Alex Barkov, Leon Draisaitl. Leon Draisaitl, it's almost like, why so low? 7.87 points per game when McDavid is 11.34. But I guess you can't really complain. That's still a really nice average points per game. Kopitar's next. Brady Tkachuk. I'm seeing here, like, I'm kind of like seeing just this list and being like, this is kind of nice to just see like all the really great players. Like, were great. Obviously, there's others that didn't, but like for at least these players, it's nice to know that you drafted them high and then you got value from them when it counted. But as far as podcast content here, I'd rather talk about some lesser players.
Well, I'll comment on Kempe just quickly. 78-point pace this season. He was drafted 63rd on average in the Cupful. By the way, Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, KKUVFilms.com, just for old time's sake. Yeah, I mean, Kempe showed me, right? I thought Kempe would hold steady from where he was last year, which was about 10 points less. And but this is a sixth straight season of Kempe improving his point pace, for whatever that's worth. I don't know how often we see that. And like some of those jumps have been significant, some of them not. Like 38 to 42 points, like 5 or 6 years back. But Kempe stepped up at 5-on-5. He's dishing more often. But Elon, I wonder if his line may have overperformed. Like the Kings don't look substantially more dangerous on ice with Kempe this season, but they shot near 10% and had a half a goal more than expected per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. So I'm actually not buying Kempe at the 78-point pace. He's had a great season. He's been super productive lately, which is key. But I think this recency, like this creates the chance that there's going to be some recency bias at drafts next year. And I think I'd keep him at 63, but he's proven me wrong, I think, each of the last 2, maybe 3 seasons. So I'll let him be. I'm not going to really, really go hard on that pronouncement. And then Draisaitl, you mentioned him just quickly, 112-point pace this season. Of all Draisaitl's dominant seasons, this may be the least dominant, which is like a really friendly way of saying, or maybe like an unfair way to say, like, we're disappointed in you, Leon, even though this is still an amazing, incredible season. If you drafted him second overall, as he was taken on average in the Cupful, you can't be so disappointed. But he is down in points, in shots, in power play points, and time on ice from last year. I can't, I'm interested if any Oilers fans actually have some takes on this, of whether Draisaitl can become, on the higher end of his dominance versus the lower end of his dominance, like get back there next season. Yeah, I would love thoughts and feedback on that, because I don't have much, but I do know that he's not locked in as the second pick next year. But we've been having that conversation through the season. Like last season in the Cupful, Draisaitl was not picked later than 3rd overall, and he was drafted 2nd overall in almost all 46 divisions. So that won't be the case this year.
Yeah, like I would be surprised if going to next year, like I think you're going to see for sure McKinnon, probably Matthews, and probably like Kucherov. I think going ahead of Draisaitl, maybe not Kucherov. I don't know. It'll be fun to see. But yeah, it won't be like as common for him to go second. That's for sure. I'd be surprised if he goes second anywhere.
Yeah. An Oiler who will rise is Evan Bouchard, right?
And also Zach Hyman.
And Zach Hyman, right? That goes without saying. I think
50 goals.
Yeah, crazy, right? He basically he's doing what we thought Evander Kane would do, right? They flipped spots basically, although Kane has sunk further than where Hyman was last year in 5-on-5 deployment. But Evan Bouchard was the 5th defenseman taken last season on average, or was he the 6th? The D taken in front of him. Erik Karlsson, Dougie Hamilton, Rasmus Dahlin.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like this is one of those things in retrospect. It's like, how could we have known, right? So Roman Josi and Cale Makar, I think Evan Bouchard is in their tier. Like I think he's a top tier defenseman. If we do, oh my gosh, charcuterie D next year. 87-point pace for Bouchard, 34 power play points, nearly 3 shots per game. and I think you can set your watch to it. That's how we thought about Daldine, Karlsson, and Hamilton to some extent last year. So I can't but I think he's more like Makar and Josi than he is like those others.
Yeah, I think if we were to do it right now, I'd have Makar as the number one. And it's kind of like my McDavid. Just like, even if like every season, maybe like there's a chance someone will beat it, like I feel like Makar is always going to be such, like he's going to be in the top two no matter what, or top three. So I'd have Makar number one, and then I'd have maybe that second tier is Josi and Bouchard, I think is a good way to do it. And then, yeah, Erik Karlsson down in like tier 7 along. And Dougie Hamilton, who knows, I guess.
Yeah, did you just, sorry, you just said you differentiate Josi from Makar, huh?
No, I said, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, I would.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. I think that at some point, the 34, 35-year-old Roman Josi has a chance to slow down a little bit. And I think Cale Makar is just, Quinn Hughes. He's there also. Yeah, thanks, Matt, in the chat. Yeah, Quinn Hughes, I think, is right there also with Josi and Evan Bouchard for me. But to me, like, Makar is just like my like sure thing stud, like no doubts. Like this year, I guess I was a little bit of injury doubt. I don't know. I just really, I see some highlights also. I don't know, maybe that, like, Josi's incredible. Like, Josi's having a great season. Don't get me wrong. But if it's me, I'm drafting Makar first. If I'm drafting D,
sure, okay.
Yeah. We'll have this conversation in Charcuter D. Was that like a popular show? Like, will people want us to do that again?
I have no idea.
I guess we'll find out.
Our Pete, let us know.
Our Pete, yeah, if he's listening. Okay. All the our Pete talk, Brian, for those of you listening to only the audio and not watching the video on YouTube, which is a perk for patrons of Keeping Karlsson, by the way, to watch us while we stream live. They don't know what we're talking about because we've talked about our Pete in the off-air parts, Brian, not in the part that's going into the main show until now. So if you want to know what we're talking about, I guess you'll have to go watch the video on YouTube. So Brian, yeah, I think at this point we've made it through the top 25. There's some fun names coming down, but I do have a lot of other little notes from around the league that I wanted to get to that I figured I would just bring them up as we talked about those players. So any other players from this list you want to bring up before I sort of round up just some news and notes from the league going into these potential finals weeks for our listeners?
Yeah, I've got two more players who really performed well over the last 14 days that we haven't mentioned yet, and they were both drafted around the same in cupfuls. First, Sidney Crosby, 23rd pick overall on average. 89-point pace for Crosby. Sid won't quit. He has his highest shot rates since 2010-11. That's his fourth year in the league, where he only played 41 games. So if you want to go back and see his full season highest shot rates, like the next highest compared to this year, you have to go even back a season or two. I think maybe just one season before that. So that'd be 2009-2010. And also, Sid's expected goals rates are also the highest since that time. So like in 15 years, Sidney Crosby has not done what he's doing this year. The guy's a freak. And if Pittsburgh hadn't struggled so much on the power play, I think Sid could have had 95, 100 points again. So I'm not going to bump him down. I also wonder who Sid's winger is going to be next year. Like, you might be like, well, Gensel's gone. But since Gensel's last game as a Penguin, Crosby has 27 points in 23 games and 76 shots. He'll be 37 next season, and I'm not downgrading him at all. Like, I think he'll fall lower than 23 because he's another year older, and I don't think anyone's really talking about the season he's having. And I also think, everyone's like, oh, well, Pittsburgh's going in the wrong direction, so Crosby will go down with them. Crosby cannot be, it's crazy. It's crazy. Everyone knows exactly how this guy plays. He's been doing this for so amazing. So what a season for Crosby. Give him his due. And then Timo Meier falls into the same category as who was it that I was saying? Like, I wish Jamie Benn.
Tage Thompson.
Tage Thompson and Tom Wilson. Just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in. Meier was drafted on average 3 spots ahead of Crosby at 20th overall. Which obviously I'm not rubbing that in at all. We know this. Why is he doing this now? Is just how I feel about it. He's got 24 points in his last 18 games, 14 of those goals since the end of February, and averaging over 3 shots per game in that span. 6 power play points, so 1 point every 3 games on the power play, and shooting 22%, which is a little high. but still, he is looking the most dominant we've ever seen him look as a New Jersey Devil. So, Elon, I'm going to bump down Timo Meyer. I think below Tage Thompson, but they're probably going around the same point in drafts next year.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I could tell you why I think he's starting to go off is like, remember there was a stretch where he was like on the third line, second power play. Like that hasn't been the case lately. Timo Meyer's getting great deployment. He's been playing with Heischer and Bratt. He's playing on the top power play with those guys in Hughes and Hughes. So that's where we expected him to be like locked in all season, either with Heischer or Hughes at even strength, and then on the top power play. So going into next year, it'll be just again like you could draft him high and he could do this, but I would just be nervous again that what if once again he gets bumped down to the bottom six? So it's a bit of a risk there compared to maybe some other guys. So I think that would be a bit of a higher risk, high reward pick. But could, like you said about Tage, like could win you your league. I think I'd rather Tage Thompson just because he's at least never been bumped from the top power play. But you never know. Well, I don't think Tage is getting bumped from the top power play, but I think Meyer probably. I mean, it's hard to say, right? I guess it'll be fun to get some information in the offseason about like what's changed recently. Well, maybe we could do a beat writer interview and see if like the New Jersey beat writer thinks that that Timo is going to hold this spot next year. Brian, can I bring up another New Jersey Devil since we're here? Luke Hughes has been really good. I feel like at one point you seemed pretty out on him, and probably right around the time you said that he finally also started going. 8 points in his last 6 games. Luke Hughes is only 20 years old, so he's another person a lot like, who was I saying before that I would love? Oh, Logan Cooley. Like, if I could get a Luke Hughes in like, the 11th, even 12th round, like a late enough round where I'm not like so sad if it doesn't work out. I feel like this could be a huge upside because overall in the season, we're only looking at like a 45-point pace, but this is like a 20-year-old. Like I know, and people are going to be also like, oh, but Dougie Hamilton's coming back. So like Luke Hughes will get bumped from the top power play. Like, so maybe he falls even further in drafts. I feel like that's like a yummy like option to just like potentially go off because his pedigree is like sky high and he's finally starting to show what he can do, a lot like Logan Cooley.
So I don't know how we haven't talked more about this actually, and I guess it's because we'd mostly written Hughes off because he wasn't producing. There were no peripherals to speak of. He had like 1 or 0 shots, maybe 2 shots, like was the best you were going to get. Sorry. I'm just going to start that over because I was looking at Jack Hughes. there's the honest truth. Okay.
I mean, Luke Hughes still has a lot of shots. Also,
I could still go with that, but I'll just be a little less wild about it. Yeah, it is a good time to revisit Luke Hughes, Elon, and he's finally started producing on the power play. That's a big deal. He has 22 power play points all season, which is like a really nice total for a rookie. He's picked up 5 of those in his last 6 games. So before that, it's like pretty underwhelming numbers for a power play 1 quarterback. Now they're like acceptable, and we see like, oh yeah, you should have this job again next year. So Luke Hughes, in a matter of a week or two, has reinforced that. Also, something Luke Hughes has done, and after a season of like a lot of like 1 and 2 and 0 shot games, he has 4 more shots in 3 of his last 5 games. All totaled, like he has 2 6-shot games too. And those, he's averaging 4 shots per game. He's got 20 shots in his last 5 games. And if Luke Hughes can keep shooting that way, then that's awesome, right? Because even when the production doesn't come, that's going to be helpful. Like I'm happy to have like a big shooting power play 1 quarterback. I guess Dougie Hamilton's going to be healthy next year, but I also don't anticipate that he's going to be on the top power play anytime soon. I think that ship has sailed. Of course, those are famous last words, so we'll see what things are looking like at the start of next season. But Luke Hughes is somebody who I think could be, pretty. I don't know if he'll be able to be a sneaky pick because everyone will still be hopeful for him, and he's a year older, and like he's not hiding on New Jersey on a fantastic top power play unit. So we'll just have to see. But I'm interested in him for next year, and more interested in him for next year than I have been for most of this year. You're muted.
No, I wasn't talking.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Sorry.
Okay. Dina just messaged asking if I'm going to want to eat cereal with her, or if she should have without me.
Oh, that's like so. I'm like.
I said
do you want to close out this? Do you want to talk about
I'll just do my notes.
Fedotov?
I'll do my notes I have of the players I wrote here. There's only like 3 left, and then we'll
okay.
yeah.
Just lightning them. Like go through all of them, and then I'll comment on Fedotov.
Oh,
Unless
okay.
you want to do it differently.
Oh, sure. No, that sounds good.
Whatever you want.
That sounds great. I think
Okay.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, Brian, here's a prediction for you. Not next year, maybe not the year after. Trev, write this down. You'll need a reminder. So I guess that would be in 2026, 27. I think we're going to have Luke Hughes in the top tier of Charcuter D with Kale McCarr.
I'm gonna say he could even get there a year earlier.
Or a year
oh
earlier?
no, that's next year. You said 25, 20. No, I think he could get there by 25, 26. You're saying 26, 27.
Yeah, I think he needs a couple years still.
Okay.
Okay, so wow. Okay. So that is going to be fun to track. I think we've got a fun decade of Hugheses coming up. All three of them are just like definitely the first family of the NHL at this point. Okay, let's finish off the show, Brian. A few news and notes here. Over in Minnesota, Ryan Hartman is likely going to get suspended for like throwing his stick at a ref. But anyways, it doesn't matter anymore because Joel Eriksson Ek is back. So they've gone back to like Ek, Boldy, and Kaprizov. So we're not that interested in Hartman anymore anyways. And I guess that also does make someone like a Zuccarello once again someone to be nervous about when he was already someone to be nervous about last week. And now Zuc is not playing with Kaprizov and he's only has 1 point in the last 5 games. So I think that's, obviously he still has a chance to do something. He's on the power play. But if you have to drop someone, I think that Zuccarello is a reasonable option. Minnesota does play 4 times, so that would be a reason to hold. So obviously check your lineups, but that's what's up in Minnesota. I mentioned when we were talking about our goalies, how Ilya Sorokin has been bad, and that's led to Semyon Varlamov getting a bunch of starts recently, and he's been good. Like he took a loss yesterday against Tampa, but it wasn't really his fault. He let in 3 goals on 39 shots. In the 4-1 loss. So I'll be curious to know. It's been 2 games in a row for Varlamov. I wonder if he gets more starts. Like next week, it looks like the Islanders play Monday, Tuesday against Philly and Chicago. So obviously Sorokin will get one of those and Varlamov will get one of those. And then you've got Thursday against Nashville and Thursday against Columbus and then Saturday against Nashville. I think there's a decent chance. I think it's going to come down to who plays better in the Monday, Tuesday for like which goalie gets the Thursday. So if you could fill that goalie spot, like I think grab Varlamov if he's out there, get that first game on the Monday or Tuesday, and then if he does better than Sorokin, I would hold and think there's a decent chance. So that'll be something to watch for sure. Speaking of goalies having big games, if you want to go really risk reward, you can take a look at Mackenzie Blackwood over in San Jose, who obviously has a chance of getting totally blown up, but also has a chance to do amazing like he did yesterday versus St. Louis, a 35 save shutout for Blackwood. And before that, he also had a good game against Minnesota, letting in only 2 of 31. Before that, he had a really bad 6 goals against Stinker. But to be fair, that was him maybe still shaking off the rust of his injury. So yeah, Blackwood, I think of all the goalies, maybe in the NHL, I think Blackwood might be the most likely to get all of his team's games next week. I guess that's probably unlikely. It's Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, but I think you'll definitely get 3 games from
starts.
Blackwood. Yeah.
I think so.
So
Elon, I'm wondering.
Take the risk.
Well, so I have Joseph Wall. I have Logan Thompson. Like he's a lock. He's staying. I have Joseph Wall and Jake Allen. And let me just double check. New Jersey plays 4 times. So I guess I'm wondering if I drop
it's 2 back-to-backs for New Jersey, so that's only going to be 2 games for Jake Allen, most likely.
Right, but that's like a guaranteed 2 games versus Wall, who's going to be 1 or 2. Do I drop Wall for Blackwood?
I mean, Toronto plays Florida tomorrow, so you could wait for the goalie start announcement, and if they're playing Wool, then just hold him and save the move, though Florida is a scary opponent. San Jose plays Seattle, which is a less scary opponent, but of course, when you're the San Jose Sharks, every team is a scary opponent. But I think to me, it probably comes down to, I would wait for the goalie start announcement. If Samsonov is playing, then I'd definitely consider making that drop. If Wool's playing, I would just hold it and hope for the best. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I'd rather burn the move. Like we're recording this Sunday night before my moves reset, but yeah, I think so.
Oh, like you have a move still available now?
I've got 2.
Oh, well, that changes things. I was thinking like, oh, these are precious moves that you need to like cling to.
No, I've got moves to burn. I don't even know who to drop, to be honest. So
maybe you don't drop Wool. Well, okay, because tomorrow, if Wool plays, you could play him and Blackwood. So
I already have I have Wool and Tarasov slated to go tomorrow.
Yeah, how many goalies do you have on this team? And you also have Logan Thompson.
I have Logan Thompson and Jake Allen.
Yeah, I would swap out Tarasov because Columbus is going against Colorado, and
Yeah.
Colorado's going to smash
In
them, I
hindsight,
think.
I should have gone with I used one move to add Tarasov. I should have used it to add Blackwood.
Well, you have 2 ads left. Just swap
Yeah,
Tarasov for
I'll
Blackwood
just I'll
now.
just do the swap. I don't have 2 guys to drop, so this works.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. Maybe Tarasov has like a 40 save shutout. The thing about games versus Colorado is there's always a chance that like there's going to be a lot of shots against. I could almost for sure predict that. It's just a question of how many of them he'll stop. I would definitely not be super comfortable starting Tarasov in that game, as good as he's been. Let's end the show with another goalie. Brian, some big news out of Philly. Their guy Fedotov finally made it over from Russia, and they've like already sent down Samsonov. Not Samsonov. They've already sent down Sandstrom, and Ivan Fedotov is up with the team, and apparently he's like ready to make his NHL debut. There's been some tweets about his like size. This guy is enormous, 6'7". Like I don't know. Like I'd like to see a picture of him and UC Saros side by side, the tallest and shortest goalie in the league. So like Sam Ersson has been struggling lately, and I don't even want to blame Sam Ersson. Like for people who have him in like a dynasty league, I don't want to be like, oh look, he's a dud. Like like they've been playing him almost every game because Felix Sandstrom stinks. Did you see that whole thing, Brian? The drama with Tortorella and Sandstrom, where like the reporter like asked Tortorella something like, whatever. What did you? It was after a game where Sandstrom really stunk, and then they asked like, what did you think of that game from Sandstrom? And he like didn't even answer, and he just like walked away, like so rude. So he like hates that guy, and now Sandstrom's down to the minors, probably never to play a game again. And I don't know. Like apparently, this Ivan Fedotov is a high caliber prospect, and there was there was a whole thing also. I think it was him. Like he got sent to the army for Russia. Like
yeah.
What else?
Yeah, he was
been on.
He signed a contract with Philly. It was 2 years ago now, and it was like, okay, he's on his way over, and then he was arrested and asked to do quote unquote asked to do his military service.
Just like how people are asked to vote for Putin in our the Russian elections that happen every so often.
Yeah, and then not only did Fedotov have to do the year of military service, but apparently he also then had to play a year for the Russian Red Army team, like CSKA Moscow. So now he's 27 years old. He's huge. He was drafted almost at the end of the 2015 draft, 7th round, 188th.
But it might be one of those things where it's not even like a reflection of his talent. It might have been like when he was drafted. Yes. It was because they were worried he might not come over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is 8 drafts ago. And I tried to like get some. So this is McDavid's draft, by the way. Like that's how long ago Fedotov was drafted. Another goalie drafted in the 7th round that year, Joey Decord.
Oh.
Yeah. He was picked 199th, 11 picks later by
Who's going to go
Ottawa.
higher in Schmore goalies board next year, Fedotov or Decord?
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I could see them being in the same tier. Like, I'm ready to sign up for, like, Philadelphia's probably going to need a goalie. At this moment, they don't have one. So
Ersson. What about Ersson?
I mean, he's been okay, but I don't think he's been reliable.
I think so. Okay, what I said, and I'll stick to it. I think that he was reliable for a decent stretch, especially when he was splitting starts with Carter Hart. He was like beating out Carter Hart for starts near the end of Hart's run. I think it was just like I think he's been running to the ground. I think this is like
he's tired
with Chicago. So I wouldn't read into. I think Ersson Fedotov could be a good tandem. I don't think it's like Fedotov's now the new starter.
Yeah,
but who knows?
Fair enough. But Decord never, like, I don't know when Seattle's ever going to let anyone ever be the starter. So I see some parallels for sure. Other guys drafted that year, by the way, just have a sense. Mangiapane, Troy Terry, Connor Garland, Kuro Kaprizov. I always forget he was drafted in the 5th round, 135th overall. Imagine finding your franchise player there. Strome, Eichel, Marner, Hannafin, Timo Meyer, Dominic Simone's whole career began and ended since Ivan Fedotov was drafted in 2015. In his last 3 years in the KHL, he owned it's been 4 years because one of those was military service. But in his last 3 years, Fedotov's had a 914, 919, and 925 save percentage. And we're all excited to see what he can do in the NHL. So welcome to North America, Ivan Fedotov. I hope he gets a few starts so we can get a look, and we'll go from here.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to stream in Fedotov when he gets his first game. Though Philly is, I saw a tweet after their bad loss yesterday, and Tortorella's like saying he thinks like Sanheim and someone else are just like totally wrecked. Like they're just like they're burnt out to a point where they're not making good decisions on the ice anymore. So I don't know. Like maybe Philly is just like ran their team into the ground too much, like playing their good players too often. So we'll see how good this Philly team is. But I'm interested anyways. If not to stream in Fedotov for his game, then at least to watch the highlights or watch the game and see how he looks. By the way, and that's not the only thing going on in the Philly crease. If we want to go really deep, they also just signed another Russian goalie, Alexei Kolosov, who's going to be going to the AHL. So he'll be someone that we can watch. And, I think that might be, this is Tortorella, right? I think that it's like not like Ersson has totally guaranteed his spot next year. I think they're going to have a training camp. And my guess is maybe you've got Fedotov, Kolosov, Ersson. They'll be fighting for the 2 spots. I don't know about like in terms of like if they'll have to put someone through waivers. Maybe that would be a reason why Ersson is there. I haven't looked into that. But anyways, it's going to be fun. Once again, Philly has some options in net, and we'll see what they do in this post-Carter Hart era because he's probably never playing again, or at least until the court case is over. But who knows? But at least Philly has options, which is if you're a Flyers fan, you're happy to see that with this unfortunate thing happening, that now they have a very fortunate thing happening of getting a really good prospect coming in.
Yeah, I'm just gonna qualify like the like I'm not gonna name.
No, I'm saying like from a hockey sense, like it's unfortunate that your number 1 goalie is on trial for like sexual assault, like that. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, it's also unfortunate for them. Anyways,
like there's obviously a bigger that hopefully everyone knows. We don't need to say or like really clarify where we stand on anything. Okay. Is on that note,
we are okay. No, so like okay.
You want to try and
does anyone stand
all of that
differently? I feel like what is there? Where else is there to stand? Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. I think that there should be a trial. Like, I think there should be whatever.
Keep talking.
There should be a trial, and I think that guilt should be hopefully, like, justice should hopefully be served. Like, I don't know. In the meantime, Philly's down a goalie. But I'll edit this out. I don't know. I'm just wondering. I just would be curious to know, like, what's the counter take? I guess there's like probably super right or like.
Well,
super
it's like the people who feel worse for the Fly. Yeah, it's like what the hell? Like let them play until we solve this.
Right.
Yeah.
I see.
I think. Yeah.
Well, they don't need to. They have
or like it's one person's. Yeah, whatever. There's all kinds of. There's a lot of nonsense. Sure. Yeah.
I think they were witnesses. But anyways, okay. So it's not one. But anyway,
we're not gonna.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll see what.
Usually that doesn't stop someone if they feel a certain kind of conviction. Yeah.
All right, so I'll wrap this up now and go eat my cereal.
Great idea.
And with that, Brian, we've made it through our final, not the final episode of the season, but our final episode of the season, previewing a week that is a couple season. Okay, let me start that all over again. And with that, Brian, we're through the content I had prepped for today. This has been a blast as per usual. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Hope you like the show. If you want to come support us, it's not too late, even though it's the end of the season. And I know some people are like canceling their Patreon right now, which is totally cool. That's one of the cool things about supporting us is you can cancel at any time. No like penalty or anything. But you could also hang in because we're going to have the playoff pool, like we said, and we're still going to be around all summer trying to come up with our picks for next year. We always have a lot of fun with our like rankings, and we do like we're going to start like mock drafts like so quick. Like it's always a blast over the off season over in the Keeping Karlsson Discord. So hope you stick around. And if you're not in, I hope you come join us to play in the playoff pool at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Oh, sorry. Let me do it. Also, another reason to be a patron, Brian and I are going to be recording a patron cast this week on Wednesday. It's our March patron cast. We have a new tradition where we do the month's patron cast in the first week of the next month. But maybe we'll get on track at some point. But yeah, it's a bonus podcast just for the patrons where we answer all their questions. We have a really fun list of questions that have been pouring in over the past month. I'm really excited to dive into all of them. So that'll be a lot of fun. So another reason to potentially want to come join the fun with us at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. And yeah, I'll post this patron cast in the Discord because I haven't announced it yet. Taylor asked here in the chat, like, when is it? It's Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday evening. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Patty, Ricard, Dusty, David, Ryan, Tom, Zach, Andrea, Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Brian, Jordan, Michael, Don, Roman, Top Cheese, and Lucas. Thank you all. You can thank Kevin Hebert for the cupful this season. And we've talked about we're already doing our thing for next year, but Kevin is our cupful coordinator and doing a fantastic job. kkupfl.com. Thank you, Elon and Shams, for all the amazing fantasy news. Still rolling, still in mid-season form over at GameDayTweets.com. Also in mid-season form are Lewis, Jeremy, Shams, and Derek, our Short Shifts crew. Logo art by BrendanWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. Like I said before, always a pleasure getting to chat with you once a week. I always look forward to it and to talk to the dear listeners. But okay, sorry, I suck.
Great job. Were you texting Dina? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Great job as always, Brian. A blast as per usual. Of course, the shows won't stop on Keeping Karlsson. We're slated to have a couple more short shifts this coming week. Great job, always, like Brian said, to Shams, Derek, Jeremy, Lewis, always bringing the goods. So make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. And then we'll have, I think I'll do a final matchup maximizer next weekend. There are other leagues aside from the cupful, of course. But then Ryan and I will be back for another mega show to start wrapping this season up. And Brian, what shall we all do while we await that fun show next weekend?
Let's keep doing like we do for the Cupful playoff pool, the Keeping Karlsson playoff pool, I should say. Keep doing all you can to make sure fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Cool. Thanks, pal. Good show. Thanks, Taylor, Matt. Shams
Thanks
left.
to the chat. Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it's what a fun way to spend the Sunday evening. I'm gonna go eat my cereal now.
Enjoy your cereal. You like your cereal cold. Enjoy your fiber, all that.
Imagine someone doesn't like their cereal cold. Well, I guess you could have like a warm
hot
cereal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do like that too. It's just that's not a night. That's a morning thing. I have oatmeal in the morning. The cereal's at night. Everyone knows that.
Love to know more about your grain intake schedule. Thanks.
See ya.
All right.
Oh, but
Bye,
Brian,
everybody.
don't leave because we need to make sure the audio uploads.
That's just porridge.
Bye.
Okay, bye.